Imagine spending your entire life feeling like, well, like everyone else was handed an instruction manual for how to operate their brain.
Right. And yours just got lost in the mail.
Exactly. You're constantly stalling out, burning fuel at twice the normal rate, and you honestly have no idea why.
Which is incredibly exhausting.
It is. And that was actually Michael Wright's reality until a late ADHD diagnosis fundamentally changed how he understood himself.
It's a profound shift because suddenly, you realize you aren't broken. You're operating on a completely different processing system.
Yeah, and usually when you finally get that diagnosis, the medical establishment hands you this very sterile, glossy, trifold pamphlet.
Oh, with a clinical bulleted list of all your deficits.
Right. But our stack of sources for today's deep dive throws that pamphlet completely out the window.
Thank goodness.
Instead, we're looking at something that feels like stepping into a bustling, interactive digital festival. I mean, we have an incredibly diverse stack today.
We really do.
We've got a dedicated website, a YouTube channel, a Substack, a Spreaker audio feed, a T-Mill storefront, and social media pages spanning TikTok, Facebook, and X.
It's a massive digital footprint.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is it is entirely peer-built.
Yeah, every single one of these sources points to one expansive multi-platform support network called HYPERFOCUSED, and their driving slogan is ADHD, different, not deficient.
I love that framing.
Me too. And the mission of our deep dive today is to explore the sheer variety of ways you can engage with this unique ecosystem.
Right, because there's something for everyone.
Exactly. Whether you have ADHD or maybe you're currently awaiting an assessment or you're just a curious friend trying to understand someone you care about, we are mapping out exactly how you can interact with the various offers of HYPERFOCUS to find support, information, and community.
And that focus on the specific ways to engage is crucial. The ADHD brain is highly dynamic and, it's very context dependent.
What do you mean by context dependent?
Well, some days it needs deep immersive reading, right? But other days that's too much. And it needs passive audio or physical movement.
So it fluctuates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A truly accessible support network has to offer multiple varied avenues of engagement. You can't just have one way in.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we dive into the sheer volume of platforms, there's this human story at the center that anchors all of these resources.
Right, Michael Wright's story.
Yeah. He didn't build this because some corporate healthcare provider hired him. He built it because, as he was navigating his own late diagnosis, he realized there was this desperate need to not just absorb clinical data, but to share the messy, lived reality of it all.
He essentially documented his own journey. From the initial referral to the assessment all the way to the final diagnosis.
Building the airplane while flying it?
Pretty much. He built the resources he wished he had when he felt like he was missing that instruction manual.
Which naturally leads us to the first major way you can engage with this network, which is the reading material.
Oh, there is so much good stuff here.
Right. For those who want to process information at their own pace, the website, which is hyperfocus.co.uk, offers really practical starting points, like a self-check for ADHD.
But the real treasure trove is the blog and the Substack.
Yes. It's a massive, totally free archive. And what I found so compelling is that they aren't using typical dry clinical headings.
Far from it. They are tackling these really complex psychological phenomena, but framing them entirely through the lens of everyday experience.
Give me an example.
Take their article titled, "The ADHD Girls Who Were Fine."
Oh, wow. Anyone familiar with how ADHD presents in women knows that the word fine is doing a monumental amount of heavy lifting there.
It really is. That article dives deep into the concept of masking. And masking isn't just pretending to be okay. It's a highly active, totally exhausting neurological process.
Like constantly running background checks on your own behavior.
Exactly. It's when a neurodivergent person constantly monitors and suppresses their natural impulses, like fidgeting or, blurting out thoughts, just to run the neurotypical social algorithms that society expects.
It's like a computer trying to run an emulator of a completely different operating system.
That's a great way to put it.
It takes up massive amounts of background RAM just to appear to be functioning normally. And eventually the battery just drains, which leads to severe burnout.
Yeah, and speaking of exhausting mental processes, the Substack covers another fascinating concept: the social anxiety and the invisible guest theory.
Break down what that invisible guest actually is. I thought that was so interesting.
So the invisible guest theory describes a specific type of social anxiety common in ADHD. It suggests that when you are in a social situation, Your brain essentially partitions off a section of its processing power.
Like a split screen.
Right. It sections it off to act as an external, hostile observer. It's like a phantom auditor standing in the corner of the room.
Just judging you.
Exactly. This guest scrutinizes your every move. It's taking notes on your posture, your tone of voice, how much eye contact you're making.
So you aren't just having a normal conversation. You are having a conversation while simultaneously watching a live, highly critical review of your own performance.
No wonder social interactions can feel so draining, right?
Honestly. But the piece that really caught my eye was their article on Occam's razor and rejection sensitivity dysphoria, or RSD.
Oh, that is one of their most innovative applications of a philosophical concept to neurodivergence.
So just to define it, RSD is this intense, almost physical emotional pain linked to the perception of being rejected or criticized.
Yes. For someone with ADHD, it's brutal. If a friend takes 3 hours to text back, the brain just starts spiraling.
It creates these elaborate, complex narratives about how that friend secretly harbors deep resentment toward them for like a minor comment they made 3 weeks ago.
Exactly. If the ADHD brain's threat detection software is overly sensitive, RSD is like a car engine suddenly revving into the red zone over a totally benign event.
So how does Occam's razor fix that? Because I usually associate that with like science or philosophy.
Well, Occam's razor is the principle that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. So the article teaches you to use that philosophical rule as a grounding technique.
Oh, I see.
When the RSD spiral starts, you force yourself to apply Occam's razor. You ask yourself, did they not text back because they secretly hate you and are plotting your social ruin?
Or do they just leave their phone in the kitchen while making a sandwich?
Exactly. It acts as a manual emergency brake.
It forcefully cuts power to the emotional spiral by demanding the most boring logistical explanation. It's such a practical tool.
It really is.
And that's the beauty of this reading material. Even on the Substack, which again is completely free, there are these great creative outlets like a poem about neurodivergence simply called He,
which provides immense emotional validation. But, HYPERFOCUSED is careful not to just dwell on the heavy, exhausting aspects of the condition.
Right, there's joy in it too.
Yes. If you click over to the YouTube Shorts, you see completely different tone. There's a video highlighting puddle writing as a new helping hand for ADHD.
Which is literally just the act of finding joy and getting a hit of dopamine by splashing a bike through a puddle.
It's so simple, but it perfectly captures the other side of the ADHD coin, that capacity for intense, childlike delight in the sensory world.
It showcases the full spectrum. But as we established earlier, the ADHD brain is context-dependent. Staring at a wall of text, even a beautifully written Substack article about masking, can sometimes trigger executive dysfunction.
Oh, definitely. If you are already overwhelmed, reading requires way too much active focus.
Which brings us to the second major engagement vector where passive consumption takes over the audio experience.
Yes, the podcast.
Right, HYPERFOCUSED produces a podcast available on Spreaker and YouTube. They utilize a bite-sized approach, keeping episodes relatively short to make complex topics easy to digest while you're, doing the dishes or commuting.
Which is perfect for neurodivergent listeners.
It is. But I have to pause here, because when I was going through the Spreaker feed, I noticed something highly unusual. And honestly, something I feel like I need to challenge. Uh-oh. You're talking about the hosts, aren't you?
Yes. The podcast is hosted by virtual hosts named AD and Haiti, and the feed explicitly flags the episodes as containing AI-generated content.
Right.
I have a real issue with this. We are talking about the deeply human, highly nuanced, often messy experience of neurodivergence. How does an AI, which lacks a nervous system, lacks dopamine receptors, lacks executive function issues, actually convey that?
That is a totally valid skepticism.
I mean, scaling empathy is a dangerous game. Doesn't a synthesized voice feel distinctly dystopian when you're trying to offer someone a virtual hand out of a shame spiral? Look, the tension between artificial delivery and human connection is a major debate right now. But if we look closely at the actual output, the content of these episodes, it becomes clear that while the delivery mechanism is AI-assisted, the script ideation is profoundly human.
How so?
The AI is essentially just a highly efficient megaphone for Michael Wright's lived experience.
Okay, I hear you saying it's a tool for scale, but the content needs to be bulletproof to overcome that artificial medium. Show me where that human depth actually cuts through the virtual voices.
Fair enough. Let's look at episode 18. The virtual hosts, AD and Haiti, teach the 5-4-3-2-1 method.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, this isn't just a generic wellness tip. It is a very specific tactical grounding technique used to manage the intense panic of sensory overload.
Right. For those who haven't encountered it, that's the method where you have to identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
Exactly. And the reason they dedicate an entire episode to this is because of how it functions neurologically.
What's happening in the brain?
When an ADHD brain is overwhelmed, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, triggers a fight, flight, or freeze impulse. The abstract panic just takes over entirely.
Right.
The 5-4-3-2-1 method essentially acts as a hardware override. It forces the brain to redirect its processing power away from the amygdala and back into the sensory cortex.
Oh, it literally grounds you in physical reality.
Exactly. And AI didn't invent the visceral need for that override.
Mm-hmm.
A human who actually understands the terror of a sensory meltdown prioritized sharing it.
Okay, I'll admit, that is highly practical. And I did see another episode 26, that seemed very rooted in lived experience. It was about the thrill of the chase.
Oh, that episode is a perfect example of explaining the why behind a common ADHD behavior.
Yeah, it delves into what actually engages the ADHD brain and what it means to be in the zone or a state of hyperfocus. But crucially, it addresses what happens when the chase stops.
The notorious dopamine crash.
Exactly.
Because the ADHD brain has a baseline deficit of dopamine, it constantly seeks out high stimulation activities. The thrill of a new project, a new hobby, a new relationship.
That chase provides the missing dopamine.
Right. But when the novelty wears off or the project is finished, the dopamine suddenly plummets back below baseline.
And that sudden drop leads to a profound lack of motivation and often a pretty depressive crash.
Yeah, and having virtual hosts explain the mechanics of that crash actually removes the moral failing from it. You aren't lazy for abandoning the hobby. Your neurochemistry simply shifted.
I can see how that reframing is incredibly powerful. There was also episode 23 titled, No Self-Improvement Without Self-Approval.
That's a heavy one.
It is. They question why people who achieve objective career success still feel completely unfulfilled. It tackles that insidious cycle of mistake-making, self-flagellation, and chronic shame that so many neurodivergent people carry.
And we connect this to the bigger picture. The format of these short audio snippets serves a very specific external purpose.
What's that?
Michael Wright notes that these aren't just for the ADHD to listen to alone. They are explicitly designed to be easily shared with family, teachers, and work colleagues.
Ah, so it's an educational bridge.
Precisely.
Like if you have a manager who doesn't understand why you work in intense bursts of hyperfocus followed by periods of apparent distraction, you don't have to awkwardly explain your dopamine deficits.
Right, you just drop an 18-minute audio clip about the thrill of the chase into their inbox.
That's brilliant. It gives you the vocabulary to explain your operating system to the neurotypical world.
It radically reduces the friction of advocacy.
Okay.
But, listening to AD and Haiti in your headphones is still a solitary experience.
Right.
And if part of the ADHD struggle is feeling isolated in a world built for neurotypical brains, passive listening isn't enough to break that isolation.
Which means a true support ecosystem has to push people out of their headphones and into interaction. This is where Hyperfocused pivots from passive consumption to active participation, leveraging community, charity, and real-world tools.
Yeah, the ecosystem actively directs users to engage with others. For instance, a major initiative highlighted on their Substack is their support for the Matthew Locke ADHD charity.
I saw that. They focus on tangible systemic change, specifically providing screening and early interventions.
Yes, and one of their major aims is to make ADHD screening available in schools for any parents or guardians who want it.
That is massive. We read in one of their blog posts about how getting an assessment on the NHS can involve incredibly long, frustrating wait times.
Years. Sometimes.
Right. So by supporting this charity, they're trying to fix the pipeline so the next generation doesn't have to wait until adulthood to realize they are missing the instruction manual.
Exactly. But beyond charity, they also offer direct spaces for connection right now. They run an active Discord server where people can chat in real time.
Discord is great for that immediate text-based validation. But perhaps their most innovative community offer is the online ADHD fitness group they launched via a Strava club.
This is absolutely brilliant when you think about the mechanics of executive dysfunction.
Oh, for sure. We know the ADHD brain struggles with task initiation. Knowing you should go for a run to regulate your nervous system is very different from actually putting on your shoes.
Exactly. And connecting it to a Strava club introduces several crucial workarounds for that dysfunction.
Like,
first, It utilizes body doubling in a virtual sense.
Mm.
Knowing others in the community are logging their runs provides external accountability.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, it gamifies the activity. The intrinsic reward of a healthy heart isn't stimulating enough for an ADHD brain, but the immediate external dopamine hit of getting a kudos notification on Strava,
Oh, I see.
that provides the exact neurochemical spark needed to initiate the task.
It basically takes the support group out of a circle of folding chairs in a sterile clinic and puts it out on the running trail. It uses technology to encourage physical regulation.
It's super smart.
And speaking of the physical world, there is one final, highly visible way to engage with the hyper-focused offers, and it's quite literally something you can wear.
Ah, you're referring to their eco-friendly shop on Tmall.
Yes, the merchandise line. And I want to get into the specific items because they are fantastic.
They really are.
They have the I Never Stick t-shirt for 20 pounds, which is a great nod to the struggle with long-term hobbies. They offer a tote bag, also 20 pounds.
Oh, and the hoodie.
Yes. They have this amazing Help Kangaroo pouch hoodie for 44 pounds and even simple round stickers for 3 pounds.
And it's worth highlighting that they partner with Tmall specifically for their strong eco-credentials. The apparel uses sustainable materials, and the printing is done in a factory powered by renewable energy.
Which is great, but the clothes aren't just about sustainable fashion. The creator explicitly calls these designs little icebreakers.
Right.
And I think about how much social friction exists when you have an invisible disability. Wearing this merchandise functions like a secret handshake for the neurodivergent community.
It operates as a wearable permission slip.
Exactly. It bypasses the agonizing process of trying to figure out how to bring up your neurodivergence in a casual conversation.
Totally.
If you are wearing a hoodie that says, different, not deficient, you are effectively hanging a sign on your door that says, I'm open to talking about this.
And buying from the shop serves a distinct triple purpose within the ecosystem.
What do you mean by triple purpose?
Well, first, it offers internal validation. When you put on that hoodie, you are claiming your neurodivergence proudly, actively fighting the shame spiral we discussed earlier.
Right.
Second, as you noted, it promotes external discussion. It acts as a conversation starter in the grocery store or the gym, doing the heavy lifting of advocacy for you.
That makes sense.
And third, it provides the funding needed to sustain the broader mission. The goal isn't just to sell tote bags. The goal is to fund an ecosystem that ensures ADHD is better accommodated in public spaces and workplaces.
So what does this all mean? If we step back and look at the sheer scale of the hyper-focused offers, we see a masterclass in dynamic accessibility.
We really do.
For you, the listener, it means that no matter what your brain needs on any given day to regulate itself, there is a tailored entry point waiting for you.
The architecture of the network is intentionally adaptable.
Right. If you have the focus to sit quietly and process deep concepts, you can read the Substack and learn how to use Occam's razor to stop an RSD spiral. But if your executive function is low and you just need auditory processing while you commute, you can listen to Adi and Haiti break down the dopamine crash of a hyperfixation.
Or if you need immediate social validation, the Discord chat is there.
Yep. If you need physical nervous system regulation, you can track or run with the Strava Club. And if you just want to silently signal your advocacy and bypass social friction, you can put on that kangaroo pouch hoodie.
The absolute genius of hyperfocused is that its very structure mirrors the neurodivergent brain itself.
Offering multiple, dynamic, and varied paths of stimulation.
It refuses to be just one static thing because the people it serves are constantly shifting in their needs.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And that actually brings me to a final thought, something that has been lingering in the background as we've mapped out all these platforms today.
Oh, what's that?
We are looking at the output of a single individual, Michael Wright. Following his own late diagnosis, he utilized modern digital tools to build a massive, sprawling support infrastructure spanning AI audio, eco-merchandising, deep dive writing, and fitness communities.
It's incredibly impressive.
It is. And it makes you wonder, what if the traditional, highly clinical approach to mental health is actually becoming obsolete?
Wow.
I mean, as tools like global digital storefronts, AI generation, and instant community platforms become increasingly accessible to everyday people, could the future of neurodivergent healthcare look less and less like a sterile doctor's office handing out glossy pamphlets, and entirely like these decentralized, peer-built multimedia ecosystems?
That is a fascinating shift to keep an eye on. Are we watching the medical manual be replaced by the collective digital village?
It is definitely something to ponder.
It really is. Well, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Whether you're splashing in a puddle for dopamine listening to the 5 4 3 2 1 method or putting on your favorite I Never Stick t-shirt, we highly encourage you to explore the rich variety of hyper-focused resources we've unpacked today.